Hey, we are back again. It is the Spin Cycle. Andrew Southwick, R.C. Williams with you today. Almost on time today, but we're midday adjacent. We're 12:45 adjacent. That's close enough, right? I mean,
you're getting what you're getting.
Yeah. So, I got to tell you, we're gonna look at a lot of video today. Got a lot of video for you today. Highlights from President Trump's rally in Georgia yesterday, as well as hopefully we'll have time to get to all this. But we've got Marjorie Taylor Greene exposing how votes happen and really explaining how the NDAA vote passage in the House occurred, why different no votes might not have been as courageous as you might think. We'll look at that. And flock cameras hiding in plain sight. But of course, now they're not just on poles everywhere, they're getting smarter. And a lot of our local sheriff's office, or at least some of them, are participating in that. But of course, it would be a lot of times, Flock's a private company. So they're dealing with private entities or local and state municipalities to spy on us, and of course they're helping. So of course that's you want to vote for a good sheriff if yours is up for election here. But anyway, quite a bit. And if we have time, there is a series of charts that the Epoch Times just published showing the difference in economic strength, really, in America, going back as far as the 1700s. So if we have time, we'll try to get to all that. But first, RC, let's get right to it. How about this?
Yes.
Let me put this on the screen. Here is President Donald Trump. I'm going to make it bigger and louder. Here he is talking about the golden age. We're in a golden age.
So, ladies and gentlemen of Georgia, the golden age of America is upon us. We are in the golden age. This is the greatest we'll ever be. And together, with your help and the patriots all across this magnificent land, we love our country. We will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America healthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you very much. Thank you, Georgia.
All right, so that is Trump's how he landed the plane in Georgia. Will make America great again. But he starts by saying, we're in the golden age and this is the best it'll ever be. Now, the first thing, if I'm writing a speech, I want to look at, does my speech agree with itself? It does not agree that this is the best we'll ever be, and yet we still need to make America great again. I'm a little bit confused. And look, people will say, "Oh man, don't rag on Trump, don't rag on the Republicans." I'm not trying to. Okay, I'm as far right as you can get. Like if anarchy is over here, I want to be just to the left of, or I guess if you guys are watching, just to the left of anarchy. I don't want government involved in anything. And that's one of the reasons why I voted Republican for years and years. But one thing that I think a lot of us can't stomach anymore is when groceries are 2 and 3 times as much as they were. Gas prices stay at $4, $5, $6, depending on what state you're in. Wages stay stagnant. Inflation stays persistent. And you're going to tell me that we're in a golden age. I'm sorry. Stop gaslighting me. Can we at least be honest?
Andrew, so I don't want to pick on the person that was in the audience, but it wasn't lost on me that the sign to stage right was upside down, which I think is a perfect analogy for the logic, right? So obviously if you're writing a speech, yes, but see, it's interesting when Trump is on script like that and he stays on script, how the script doesn't necessarily make sense. You can't be in a golden age and make America great again at the same time. Logically, it doesn't make sense. Now look, in all seriousness, I'll stop poking fun because it is easy to poke fun. In the first Trump term, Andrew, these rallies were to re-energize the president. And, he feeds off of the audience, which I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with that.
No, and he's very effective in doing that.
Very, very much so. I think my bigger concern is a lot of what we covered yesterday. Economic reports that 105 million Americans aren't working does not feel like the golden age. People trying to figure out, as a matter of fact, listen, I'm a viewer of American Sunrise on Real America's Voice. I watch the show occasionally, and I caught it this morning. And Andrew, I'll tell you that uh, the host sounded a lot like us, venting their frustrations about filling up the gas tank, it costing $70, and how many people have to make that decision consciously, whether it's going to be gas or groceries. So, I think we run into a place. Obviously, President Trump is going to campaign to try to get Republicans elected in the midterms. But if you keep glossing over what's going on with it's the golden age, it's the golden age, our longstanding joke is maybe it's the golden age and someone's on the other side of the wall uh, doing their business and you think it's the golden age. But it becomes difficult, Andrew, between economic issues, things like unemployment, the conflict in Iran, for people to really feel that beyond who was at the rally. And I think that's going to become more of an area of concern as we get closer to November. Yeah, I mean, that's.
Well, and as we've talked about before, we've covered stories like the rise of communism in America, where we're electing out and out communists in different states and cities. And part of the reason for that is because the Republicans seem so tone deaf in their messaging, and they continue to find new ways to stab their own constituents in the back. They campaign on our issues, they suck up all the oxygen on our issues, and then go in and move forward the progressive issues. And we say, well, wait a minute, that's not what we voted for. And we're told, shut up, sit down, short-term pain for long-term gain. Well, okay, fine. Explain what the gain is going to be, because then here's what's happening. The frustration with the Republican Party is not necessarily translating into enthusiasm for the Democrat Party. We covered that just a couple of days ago. Van Jones is just as worried about the communists overtaking Democrats as we are about communists overtaking America, probably for different reasons, but nonetheless. But what happens is then you have people saying, well, look, the Republicans don't do it, the Democrats won't do it. I guess I'm going to try over here. A YouGov poll just came out this week that has, well, clearly progressives, and it broke down 5 categories, basically. Progressives are far left, Democrat, liberal, probably classic liberals, independents, and then conservatives and like far right conservatives, right? The only 2 demographics that saw communism as a dangerous threat were conservatives and far-right conservatives. The top 3 didn't see it as a threat, a minor threat at best in that. You can check that out on YouGov. I think that is more of an alarming stat, especially going into the midterms, than some of these other things, because people are looking now for they're looking for another party. Don't you think?
I do, Andrew. And, we have long said, both on the show and in our research, that you're probably looking at your last real election cycle with just 2 parties. I think you're going to see the rise of either enough offshoots to begin to create issues, maybe at the local level first, and then to scale to state and national, or the legitimate rise of a third party option that is well financed, and people who are in places of public service are so frustrated that they say, you know what, look, I'm not dealing with either of these 2 anymore. I'm going to come over here where I feel like we can actually get something done. And for people who tell me, because we hear this all the time naturally, look, 2-party system, if you're not going to run on one side or the other, you can't get elected. It's like, you put way too much confidence in a system that has been in decline for a really long time. And 2, I'll point you back to the Whig Party. Nobody thought the Whig Party would do anything either until they started winning local races, then state races, and then they spent time in the White House. So, don't.
Well, even the Republican Party, like people look back at the Republican Party and say, Abraham Lincoln, obviously he was the first Republican president, but that party was not. Abraham Lincoln wasn't around when the party was established. That was
correct.
Really was a abolitionist, slavery abolitionist that founded the party to end slavery specifically. That was their primary goal. But it was people who said, no, these other parties aren't going to do it. And we had some good presidents in those parties, but we needed something new at that time. And now, of course, you get, whenever you talk about third party, you're poo-pooed, I think now, because especially the parties know that if that ever got traction, business as usual for them would be over. And I think that would be a welcome change for many Americans.
You're right, Andrew. When people have nothing left to lose, they lose it, as the great Gerald Celente would say. And I think people are there, right? Again, going back to the morning show this morning, the frustration I heard from people who are informed and deal with the news every day was palatable to how I believe a large chunk of Americans, conservative included, by the way, are feeling right now, where they want some clear direction and not necessarily empty rhetoric or words or, hey, it's just okay, just, keep on chugging along. Like, we've been asked to take on short-term pain, as we understand it, for long-term gain. But we're neither seeing the short-term pain or the path to long-term gain as we sit today. And again, Andrew, I think the same thing with the issues with Iran. People's appetite for this stuff is limited because you become concerned when you can't pay your bills about doing that and managing your household. And you're less concerned about empty words and rhetoric, what's going on half a world away, or what someone's telling you, like things are okay, when you look out your window or you go sit in your car and you look at the gas gauge, they're not okay.
He outmaneuvered.
Oh, sorry. Let me, speaking of that, let me get a clip here of Glenn Beck. You can hear there that he outmaneuvered. Here's Glenn Beck. And this, you need to listen to this closely, because he's going to say this in a very polite way, that President Trump needs to wrap it up in Iran. And also he's going to say in a polite way that President Trump underestimated the actual motivation of the Iranian regime. And we can talk about that in a second. It's about a three-minute clip, a little bit longer than normal, but we're just going to let it play. This is from Glenn Beck's new Torch network. Here's Glenn Beck breaking down the impasse we're at with Iran right now.
Our best thinkers at the Pentagon. Our best thinkers at the Pentagon said this is the way we fight this. And when we do fight this, God forbid we ever have to fight it, oil will go to $150 to $350 a barrel. That collapses the economy. That's why all of these guys kick the can down the road, because there's no way out. And the Pentagon knew it. It's going to. So all the advisors said can't do it because it'll do this. Donald Trump says, well, that's not how I'm going to fight the war. I'm going to fight the war differently, and I'm going to keep the strait open. And they're like, Mr. President, you're not going to be able to. No, really? Watch me. Because here's how we're going to do it. So they all get on board, and they're all like, okay. And he has kept the price between $110 and $70 a barrel. Today, I think it's an $83 or $88 a barrel, something like that, which is totally doable. We've had that kind of price before. At 120, it starts to get really dicey. I mean, it's expensive, but it's economy collapsing at 120 to 150 sustained. The economy collapses. So his advice, or his advisor said, don't go in because the economy collapsed because of the price of oil. He said, no, that's not a problem. Now, I believe that he thought this would end quicker. I think he really thought that there would be somebody that he could kill the top people at the very beginning, and the others would go like, I don't want to die, so I'm with them. But he didn't take into account, I think, how diehard these 12ers actually are. They are in it for the long run. And so this has lasted longer than he thought it would. And because of that, we have had to open up our strategic oil reserves. China opened up their strategic oil reserves. Europe opened up their strategic oil reserves. Everybody now is out of oil in our strategic oil reserves. Out. That's meant for wartime. If we're at the beginning of the war, we're in deep, deep trouble, because there's no cushion now to bring the price from $150 down to $100 a barrel. There's no price. If somehow or another oil cannot come through that choke point to us, we can't run our ships and our airplanes. This is extraordinarily dangerous. And the president has told me, he was given information, he didn't tell me what it was, but he was given information that said, if I continue and I don't put a pause on this right now, we could have a global economic collapse. And his quote to me was, and I am not going to be Herbert Hoover. I am not going to put the world into an economic depression.
Well, I hope that is correct. I hope that he is not going to put the world into an economic depression. But here's the thing. Did you notice what Glenn Beck said there that I think is accurate? And we have said on this program before that President Trump is looking at this like a deal maker, which is what he is. Almost amoral. He clearly doesn't understand the theological underpinning that the Iranian regime is working from. And that's one of the reasons why I said I think he's underestimated that, because and notice that Glenn Beck called the Iranians 12ers. That's a reference to the fact that they're looking to bring about the 12th Imam. That's who they want to hasten his arrival on earth. And to do that, you got to wipe out the infidels. You got to wipe out the little Satan. You got to wipe out the great Satan. They and their own personal survival is not the thing they're protecting. It doesn't scare them that we killed off the top leader. They don't care. They'll line up to die again, or they'll line up to die themselves if it will bring about the 12th Imam. I think that's what we've underestimated here, and it's a slightly different underestimation than we had in Afghanistan. We didn't think but it was the same mistake. We'll come in, and in 2 days they'll see the shock and awe. They'll come out with their hands up, and now we're stuck. I'd say it to you like this. I once tried to make a right turn in a 26-foot moving truck. So it's, that's actually about 32 feet or so altogether. I tried to make a tight right turn into a narrow driveway that had ditches on each side, right? And I thought I had it, and I can drive that large of a truck. I've done it many times all across the country. I've made some interesting turns in my day, and I thought I could make that one. Well, I ended up, that back wheel, sure enough, got stuck in that ditch, and now the truck is sitting like this, and the wheel is spinning because it's in the air. There's, it's not on the ground. Can't get out of it. And I think it's a similar thing. Overestimated our ability, underestimated the resolve of the opposition. And now the thing is, we've used our strategic reserves to keep the price of oil down. That's something Glenn Beck was talking about there. If this continues to go on, that those barrels are going to go up. The Strait of Hormuz is a mess. Yes, it's open, kind of, and that's one of the reasons why we're not seeing $120 for a barrel of oil right now. But if it continues, yeah, it's going to be a major problem. But I think that rear wheel, so to speak, is stuck in the ditch, and they're not really sure how to get out of it. That's my take. What do you think?
So back to our ongoing Rocky analogy. Now Apollo Creed is in the 14th round with Rocky Balboa. He's beat up. He has no idea how any of this happened because he was faster and stronger and more nimble, but he thought it was a show, and Rocky thought it was a fight. And then here we are. Andrew, this is so frustrating. And I know I've brought this up before, but everyone, please humor me for just a second, because context is important as to why we do the spin cycle, why we do Culture Crossroads, why we ask you to go back and watch. In March at CPAC, when I was on War Room with Steve Bannon, I said this exact thing when the question of Iran came up. It's not what he wanted me to say, which is why it was the fastest we got to go to break probably in the history of network television. The reality remains, if you underestimate an opponent and you don't knock a bum out in the first round, that bum will hurt you. I think it's telling that Glenn Beck would say what he said with his platform about the president in the way that he did. That should be a leading indicator as to where we're actually at versus the rah-rah that you hear from the press release churn that comes out of DC. Andrew, I mean, so then now we ask the logical question, right? If President Trump actually did say, I am not going to take the world into a full-on economic depression, then what does he do, right? Mm-hmm. The options now become more limited. What does he actually do? And that's part one. Here's part two, because it's delicate, right? Because as politicians, you still got to get elected, and midterms are coming up. How do you handle the two fronts? Now, again, going back to March and being at CPAC and saying this, I said at the time that President Trump is fighting a two-front war. He is fighting the actual conflict, and then he's fighting in the war of public opinion. And so wherever you go, there you are. So now we're back at, how are you going to handle the court of public opinion in trying to get yourself out of this so it does not completely derail any plans that you have? I mean, those are my questions, Andrew, and those questions have been consistent for me and from you and Juliana really since the beginning of this thing. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, and again, that's why I say I think the wheel's in the ditch. I'm not sure they know, because it's an unenviable spot. To give President Trump every benefit of the doubt as to this spot, when you do this and you get stuck like this, it is, just human reaction, a deer in the headlight moment. Oh my gosh, how am I going to get out of this? This is worse than I thought. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's important to go through the congressional declaration process if you're going to go to war, because there are people, including, by the way, we on Culture Crossroads on the Sunday show, one of the concerns we had is we better not underestimate what this is going to take, and because it's going to take longer than we think if we do. And sure enough, here we are. But that would have come up, and we didn't do it in Afghanistan. We didn't do it in Vietnam. We didn't do it in Korea. We didn't do it in Desert Storm. That was the one outlier that we actually went in, did something, and got out of that. But you had Storm and Norman Schwarzkopf there, who I think knew exactly what to do in terms of that fighting general. But we haven't fought to win since World War II outside of Desert Storm, and we didn't count on that. All right, we got to leave that one there. Moving on. The NDAA was passed yesterday by the House. The NDAA included Section 219, which merges the tech and intel of America and Israel. Now, I'm on the record. I'm on the Culture Crossroads YouTube channel, Culture Crossroads 316, and on the Sunday show, that I think that's one of the most dangerous things we can do, because we become more dependent on a foreign entity. Not only that, but sharing that kind of information with the foreign nation, whether they're an ally or not. Well, certainly, hopefully, we wouldn't be doing that with someone who's not an ally, but with an ally, there is. I don't understand. Sometimes you might share a little bit, but to permanently merge that, and then really have the fruition. If you read the bill, it comes to fruition in 29. So the next president is going to inherit this framework that's already here. We become now dependent on Israel, and there will be some moves. Again, the more dependent we are on those not ourselves, the worse it gets. We're dependent on China for our pharmaceuticals. If they cut that off, we're screwed. All the places we're dependent on for our food and wheat, consider the Ukraine, for example, one of the world's largest suppliers of wheat. We get cut off. Our dependence on foreign oil is a big reason why Iran matters so much. And yet we won't drill here where we have it. And so now to say, well, let's be more dependent on a foreign nation. And also we have to then trust that their security to protect that intel won't be breached, won't be compromised in some way, and that our information gets into the hands of our worst enemies. And what are we going to do about that? We have no idea. Clearly, we'll find out when that happens, because somehow, no matter how deadly or dangerous, these things always leak. But I digress. Marjorie Taylor Greene, whatever you think about her, she was in Congress. She does know how the sausage is made. She released a video sharing how these things are voted for, and how Republicans, how just Congress in general, not just Republicans, Democrats and Republicans, how they're able to vote no or yes just to save their own hides. So I want to bring this up here. It's worth noting, because it's more proof that our representatives, no matter what party you're in, our representatives are more interested in representing themselves and their self-interests than we the people. Let's check this out. Oh my goodness, I went the wrong way here. Hold on now. There we go. TV. Hit play. Here we go.
Hey guys, I just want to follow up on a video that I put out explaining the NDAA vote that happened yesterday, explaining the two votes. Every time a bill passes the House floor, it has to cross two hurdles. The first vote is called the rule vote. The second vote is final passage vote. Now, that's super confusing and it's really stupid, but that's the way they do it. We had 7 total Republicans vote no on final passage to the NDAA because of Section 219 and other issues that they didn't like within the bill. We are thankful to them for voting no. However, that was a safe no vote. And let me explain that. There's 2 ways to vote no. There's the safe no vote, which is voting no on a bill when you know it's going to pass, so you don't have to make anybody mad and you can still vote no because it's going to pass even without your vote. Then there's the courageous no vote, and that is voting no on the rule, the first vote for that bill to cross to final passage. When you vote no on the rule vote, you're voting no against everyone. You're voting no against leadership. You're voting no against the White House. You are taking a hard stand and saying, I am 100% against this bill. I do not want it to pass. There was only one Republican that took the courageous no vote on the rule vote. That was Thomas Massie. He voted no. The other Republicans only voted no on the second vote, the final passage vote, when they knew that the bill was going to pass. Okay? So there's a difference, and that's what you need to understand. There's the two votes. One is the rule vote. The second vote is final passage. And the most courageous vote any member of Congress can take is voting no on the rule. Here's the difference. The rule vote passed 213 to 212. 213 to 212. If those 6 other Republicans had voted no with Thomas Massie on the rule vote, the rule would have failed and the NDAA could not have moved forward to the second final passage vote. However, they voted yes on the rule, allowing it to move forward. And Thomas was the only one that voted no. But when it came to final passage, 6 decided to vote no then because it was safe. You want to know why? Because there were 6 Democrats that were voting yes.
Okay, that's how the sausage is made. That's how we have the NDAA. That's how we have the Republicans pretending to be representing us, but really only doing it when it is politically safe. And I think politically safe from their own party, because what happened to Thomas Massie? Do you recall, RC? What happened to Thomas Massie, who voted no on the rule?
Yeah, Thomas Massie is a lame duck. He
got ran out of town.
Persona non grata. Yeah, he got persona non grata right out of
by
town.
the president himself.
Yes.
By his own party, by the leader of his own party, because he said, no, maybe we shouldn't do that. Now, look, I don't agree with any politician on 100% of everything. I doubt that I agree with any living person on 100% of everything.
100% of anything.
Right? But, you know, Massie did have some critical no votes that mattered, that were principled, and we don't have that principle. And unfortunately, all those that stood on those principle, for example, those who were loud about releasing the Epstein files, where did they go? Well, MTG was one of them. She's not there anymore. You know, I don't think these are coincidences, but at the same time, this is how something like an NDAA passes with Section 219 in it. Now, it still has to go through the Senate, and I'm not sure that it can do that, but perhaps, you know, with all this vote and that vote, and here's how you can save face, and here's how you can save face, and here's this loophole, I'm sure they'll find a way to betray us. RC, what do you think?
Andrew, I am so glad that Marjorie Taylor Greene just did that walk and talk description so people understand how the sausage is made. Maybe you don't want to see it, but there are times where you have to understand how this works. I was just beating my hand and my fist against my head because I am so frustrated with this cycle of BS from people who are supposed to be doing what we sent them to do. Meanwhile, they're playing agenda politics and they're playing fake politics just so they can say, oh, look, I voted against it, right? Sleight of hand, but over here, you know, my vote really didn't matter. That was more ceremonial, just so I could lie to you, so I could keep perpetuating this thing, so I get my way, right? Because in Congress, I've got to raise a certain amount of money and I've got to stay in the good graces of people. They know that, so they've got to have a way for me to have cover against bills that they know my constituents won't like. So I can say, listen, I voted against that. Meanwhile, people have no idea that what they voted against really doesn't matter. It was perfunctory, right? It is so sickening. But I guess this is also the silver lining, Andrew. The silver lining is now all of this stuff is coming out, and now people are coming face to face with the realness of a self-governing society. If you keep letting them do this to you, before you know it, the Clarity Act will pass, Real ID will pass, and then you'll be in your Minority Report 15-minute city open air prison, as Juliana accurately describes it, wondering who, what's it, who done it, and what happened. And we're simply going to look at you and say, so all of that work you didn't want to do, Congratulations on somebody else doing it for you. Now they'll tell you when to eat, where to go, what to do.
I'm so glad you brought up the surveillance state, because that's our next and what will have to be our final story for today. We're going to go a little over time, but this is a ex-user who found this flock camera on the back of a sheriff's office speedometer check here. Check this out.
Yeah, you might think it's just an innocent little speed reader, right? Oh, look at this. Volusia Sheriff's own this one. Gets my speed. I might even be able to get 5 miles an hour out of it from running. But what lurks on the back of it? Not there, but right there. Look at that. Someone did some custom metal fabricating and decided to put a flock camera, a mobile one, anywhere they want to put it in the speed reader. It's probably getting a picture of my wiener right now. However, look at that. Right on the board. You're safe. The sheriff. Partially on the sidewalk. There's the number. And it is working. I mean, you can see when you cover the light up a little bit. This thing is working.
That thing is working. Surveillance state is growing. If we're going to knock them down when they're on poles, they're going to put them behind sheriff-owned speedometers. RC, and this is what we're talking about. And one of the other frustrating things, again, and I say this, I voted Republican all of my life, and one of the frustrating things about the Republican Party, and we showed that graph yesterday, of the downward trajectory of the economy since 2000, when the Republicans took over after Clinton's time in office. And funny, it was Bill Clinton with a Republican Senate and a Republican House that had the last balanced budget. That was the last time that government actually shrank tangibly. And then Bush 43 comes in. He did inherit that cruising economy. But then you remember what happened at the end of Bush's term, when all of a sudden $700 billion TARP happened. And now government is just blowing spending, and the trajectory of the economy has gone like this steadily for 26 years. And by and large, it's been the Republicans bringing you this mess. It's been the Republicans bringing you a lot of the things that the progressives would want to do, but they know it wouldn't pass if they did it. So the Republicans are doing it. The Republicans are the ones getting in bed with big tech right now. The Republicans are the ones started the wars around the world. The Republicans are the ones getting in bed with big pharma and posting pictures with Trump in the office with the tech leaders and the pharma leaders bragging about these things. And it's maddening, because we sent them to Washington to do the exact opposite. And yet now it's becoming so pervasive and it's happening so far under our noses that even if we take them down, we're in plain sight, they're finding ways to hide them and then use our own county protectors as subterfuge in order to make it happen.
Andrew, hard to believe that those county protectors, who are constitutionally elected to office, fall in line with this. But then again, they get huge money offers for equipment and everything else from the Fed. So of course they're going to fall in line, because what's a little flock camera-ism between friends and colleagues, right?
Sure, why not?
You cannot hate this stuff and the people who are doing it to you enough. And you cannot, if you fall for tribalism, this is what it gets you. And I'd revert back, Andrew, you mentioned the early 2000s. Let's go back to what happened after 9/11. We got the Patriot Act. The precursor for all of this comes from the Patriot Act. And the question you have to ask yourself is, why does Congress keep funding the section? I think it's 702.
FISA 702.
Right. Why do they keep funding that? There's really no need to fund that anymore, because why would you want to spy warrantlessly on American citizens? Oh, that's right. You need to have that loophole open just in case you need justification to do something like push Agenda 2030. Friends, please understand that those who purport to be your friends, all those people ain't your friends. Your parents used to tell you that when you were a kid. Not everybody is your friend, even if they act like they are. You should watch really, really closely who says, I'm your friend. Now, we happen to live in a county where I think that this is actually the case. What I'm describing to you, I believe that's actually happening in the county that we live in, and we're being sold a bill of goods because somebody is looking for higher office. Now, you may be in a similar situation. Here's the advantage. If you talk about this and you're brave enough, like the guy who went and did that video, you can start to affect change, because once the roaches know they can't hide in the dark anymore, they start to scurry. But you got to keep the pressure on. Remember, Ben Franklin said, eternal vigilance is the key to it all.
Well, and we have to understand too. First of all, we have to start being honest with ourselves. Republicans especially need to be honest about the state of the Republican Party and the policies that we are doing, particularly, well, domestically and in foreign policy, and that they're not conservative right now. They're not. And I don't say that because I've all of a sudden become a Democrat. Far be it. But if we're not honest with ourselves and we just keep putting on rose-colored glasses and vote R, we'll save the day. Vote for, we need the justices. I mean, come on. How about the justices that Trump appointed just take turns rotating on a carousel? Which one's going to screw us on the next ruling? So we have to, first of all, be honest about the state of our own party and the fact that they don't represent us and they're not conservative and they haven't been for some time. Now, then we have to decide, okay, well, what do we want to do going forward about that? Well, one thing we have to realize, the surveillance state that's being installed is not just one that spies on your every move and tracks it and all that stuff. It does that. But it also sets up a justice system where you're guilty before proven innocent. You need to understand the whole thing is going upside down. And this is a tale as old as time. That's what happened to when Daniel, the reason Daniel in the Bible got thrown in the lion's den is some of the political leaders framed him. They made a law that made it a crime to pray unless you were praying to the king and praising the king. They knew Daniel was not going to do that. They knew Daniel would do it out in the open with his windows open in his house. And sure enough, they made him guilty. And that's what they're going to do with us. They're going to find ways. I mean, and if we allow this to continue to embed itself, by the time we realize it, we'll be fighting the lions with the bones of those they've already eaten. You know what I mean? And I don't mean to be grotesque. I don't mean to be hyperbolic in that. But that's the way this goes, because unchecked power desires more unchecked power. And we are giving it to them. And it seems like we're just sleeping at the wheel to do it. We must wake up.
If you don't stop them now, there will not be an opportunity to stop them. And if you don't care, if there's nothing else that you can bring yourself to care about, what you should care about is what you're going to leave behind for those who come after you. If you love your family, your kids, your parents, future generations you'll never meet, if you truly care about what happens to them, and you are a Bible-believing Christian, you already know what you have to do. I would strongly suggest you do it before we completely run out of time.
I see real quick, I know we're way over time here on this episode. Watchman Action, you have done some work to empower and Empowered to Act. You got a book about that.
Yes.
To empower the citizens, the everydayers, people like me that don't really know where to start, to give them a roadmap to do that. I don't want to list all these problems and not give at least some kind of solution that people can take. Can you explain a little bit of that here and where they can go to find it?
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. So I'll do this now and then I'll do it again at the end. If you go to watchmanaction.org and you click on training, you can see our entire process, and you can actually go through one of our classes. We have about a 2.5-hour video. In a day or less, we can have any person or group trained and ready to go for the issue, to advocate for the issue that matters to them most. So here's how it works. We break it into 3 categories. You got to be able to tell your story, right? Because you have to have a compelling story to win any battle. Then we help you to organize and mobilize your people. And then we give you all the tools and the tricks and the tips to measure your success, because if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So you got to be able to tell your story. You got to be able to organize and mobilize your people, and you got to be able to measure your success. We can get you ready to do all of that in 1 day or less. And you can get started at watchmanaction.org. Go check out the training for yourself. We can get you an instruction manual. If you want us to come and train, we're happy to do that.
No, we lost him there for a little bit. RC will come back.
Get in touch.
So watchmanaction.org. We lost the last little bit of that, but that's okay. Watchmanaction.org. You can, Watchmen is plural, WATCHMEN, watchmenaction.org. You can find Empowered to Act there. If you want to get in the fight, if you're awake now and you want to join us in this, I encourage you to take that step today. It's something positive. It's an action step you can do. We can get out from behind our keyboards and actually make a difference, because we do need to stop this wave of government control and tyranny going on. They're runaway and rogue. It's both parties. It's time to throw off this government in a peaceful way, in a lawful way, and bring about new guards for the future security of our nation, which is written in our founding documents. You can also find more of RC and his work. Search for Watchmen Action. Again, Watchmen plural, Watchmen Action on any of the socials that you find. For Culture Crossroads, at Culture Crossroads 316, see it at the bottom of the screen. That is the YouTube page. And let's see, what's my other one? Oh yeah, The Culture Crossroads with Andrew Southwick on Facebook. You can do that as well. It's weird. If I were Mexican, that might actually matter. But
Same,
anyway,
right?
yeah, and that's something. I know. I'm sorry. Anyway, good try though. And we appreciate the comments. Welcome. If you want us to wear the black hat, we can do that too. Culture Crossroads is on Beck TV, Beck TV Plus, BEKTV.plus, every Sunday at 5 p.m. Central Time, or on demand. And of course, we post clips and other goodies on our socials as well. So with that, this was a supersized episode of the Spin Cycle. Thank you for checking us out. And even Mike, thank you too. We will see you next time, which I guess next time will be tomorrow. I'm sure there'll be more to talk about. We'll see you then.